Under normal circumstances, the F word doesn't get thrown a lot around in mainstream politics. When people bring up fascism, it's generally within the fever swamp of conspiracy theorists. But this presidential campaign has been anything but normal, and now some prominent members of the Republican Party establishment are openly invoking fascism to describe their own party's frontrunner, Donald J. Trump. It started last week with a series of tweets from top advisors and supporters of some of Trump's opponents after Trump said he'd be open to creating a database or registry of Muslims in America. Here's John Noonan, National Security Advisor Jeb Bush, quote, "Forced federal registration of U.S. citizens based on religious identity is fascism, period, nothing else to call it." From Steve Deace, an Iowa radio host who endorsed Ted Cruz, if Obama proposed the same religion registry as Trump, every conservative in the country would call it what it is, creeping fascism. And from Max Boot, foreign policy advisor to Marco Rubio, Trump is a fascist, period, and that's not a term I use loosely or often, but he's earned it. One of Trump's lesser-known rivals, former Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore, who's angling for the nomination himself, has actually used the F word himself.
And now, yesterday, Donald Trump proposes a federal deportation force to rip up our society at the very time when we need unity in the face of these challenges. I want you to know that this is fascist talk. It is unworthy of the great Republican Party of the United States. It may be acceptable to some people, but it is not acceptable to me.
Today, another candidate took it to an entirely new level, releasing a dramatic online ad directed at Trump.
You might not care if Donald Trump says Muslims must register with their government because you're not one. And you might not care if Donald Trump says he's going to round up all the Hispanic immigrants because you're not one. And you might not care if Donald Trump says it's okay to rough up black protesters because you're not one. And you might not care if Donald Trump wants to suppress journalists because you're not one. But think about this. If he keeps going and he actually becomes president, he might just get around to you.
Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because it paraphrases a legendary poem by the German pastor Martin Niemöller, who survived 7 years in Nazi concentration camps. It goes like this. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Watching that ad, it's hard not to conclude that John Kasich, the sitting Republican governor of Ohio, is drawing an explicit parallel between Donald Trump and the rise of the Third Reich. Lest we forget, Trump is a man who kicked off his campaign by calling Mexican immigrants criminals and rapists. And while he initially paid a price with some lost business deals, he's since spent almost 6 months at the top of the polls, the most popular candidate in the GOP field, surging as of late. There's clearly demand for what Trump is selling, and it's not new. It's been present in the base for years, fueled by conservative leaders and elected officials. But in the wake of the attacks in Paris, Trump seems to have crossed a line in the eyes of some fellow Republicans, starting with his professed openness to requiring Muslims in this country to register in a database or carry special ID. In just the last few days, he's managed to flirt with some of the most recognizable aspects of fascism. For example, political violence, as we've documented on this show. Protesters have been assaulted by Trump supporters on numerous occasions. And after an African-American demonstrator was filmed being attacked at a rally on Saturday, this was Trump's response.
I had 10,000 people in the room yesterday, 10,000 people. And this guy started screaming by himself. And they did, I don't know, rough up. Maybe he should have been roughed up because it was absolutely disgusting what he was doing.
Trump seems to favor a charismatic strongman approach to leadership, praising Vladimir Putin for that very quality and building his own campaign around a cult of personality.
But you people and me and everybody, you know when somebody moves to an apartment near you or to a house near you. You're pretty smart, right? We know if there's something going, report them. Most likely you'll be wrong, and that's okay. But let the local police go in and check out. And you'll get rid of this stuff. That's the best way. Everybody's their own cop in a way. I mean, you got to do it.
Joining me now, former Vermont governor and DNC chair Howard Dean. Well, what do you make of all this?
I make two things of this. One is that the Republicans are now in full terror mode that Donald Trump is going to get the nomination, and they think he can't win. And two, This is very interesting, watching all these people who are all authoritarians themselves call Donald Trump a fascist. The Republican Party is an authoritarian party. If you believe...
Well, let me just say, they would argue that we're the opposite, that they believe in limited government and strict restrictions on what the government can do.
Well, they do, and they don't. They also believe in restricting the right to vote. And any party which, as a party, and this one is a party that has done this, which restricts the right to vote, is a party that places their own authority above the authority of the people and above the value of democracy. So I've never thought...
So you think you're saying that efforts by Republicans, particularly at the state level, to restrict the franchise, voter ID, all sorts of things, show a kind of anti-democratic impulse in the modern
Absolutely do they. And it's not only that. Here we are talking about taking away people's rights. What about the Republican Party taking about the rights of women away to decide for their own reproductive future? This is a party that has a strong authoritarian bent. It has for a very long time. And now they're complaining that Donald Trump is a fascist?
But there is a difference. There is a difference between people's positions on, say, abortion, right? And the idea of having Muslims register in some special database. I mean, that's the reaction.
So,
right?
okay, but so their view is it's okay to take away people's rights to vote if they happen to be poor or black or elderly, but it's not okay to put people on a registration list. Look, I don't think either one of this is okay. We're talking about grades of authoritarianism here.
To me, what's more indicative, frankly, is the fact that the kind of backlash he's getting now is not precipitated by the first day when he basically said Mexico is sending rapists and criminals
the other thing is,
north
Chris,
of the border.
We also know the Republicans have been dog whistling and stuff for a long time. Look at Romney saying, I'm not going to, I'll veto the DREAM Act if it gets to my desk. I mean, look, the Hispanic population...
But I feel like you are conflating a mode of politics that Donald Trump is channeling here that is attracting this attention with the sort of policy positions of the Republican Party.
The policy positions are dog whistling to the same people who are enthusiastic about Donald Trump. That's what the point I'm trying to make is. And what's happened is the quote-unquote respectable ring of the Republican Party has now seen the naked results of exactly what happens when somebody lays it all out there.
Your case is that what was essentially done by nudge and wink and dog whistle.
That's exactly right.
Playing to certain grievances of a predominantly
Trump is hanging it all out there, and it's scaring the living hell out of the Republicans, because the Republicans knew that their view was never going to be successful anyway in front of a general electorate, and it hasn't for quite some time. What they're now afraid of is, here's a guy out there just laying it all out, laying their case out in language that everybody can understand. They're not going to like that, and they don't like it, and they're scared to death of Donald Trump.
The first thing you said about the desperation, it does strike me that you can feel a little bit of panic right now.
I have never seen anybody called a fascist, let alone the leading candidate of the party, by the people in their own party.
I'm an MSNBC host, and I don't make a habit of coming, you know, I'm not going to come here and call
these guys are outdoing the Democrats.
Max Boot, who is the Marco Rubio guy, he just says he's a fascist full stop. He's earned the title.
These guys are terrified. They're absolutely terrified, because there is a winning path for Donald Trump to win, and we're going to know what it is on the 15th of March, where Florida, the first winner-take-all state. If Donald Trump wins Florida, not only is Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush dead, they're all dead, because it's a winner-take-all state. And they know it.
March 15th. And Donald Trump, let's just remember, it's important that you say March 15th, because that is Florida, that is winner take all. It's a huge amount of delegates. And it is also the state where Donald Trump's polling has from the very beginning been perhaps the most dominant.
Right. I agree. I think it's absolutely critical. This is do or die time. They're seeing this now because the Republicans are not stupid. They now realize that not only is Donald Trump the real thing, that he is now the odds-on favorite to win the nomination.